I'm Ray Rickman. I'm the Executive Director of Stages of Freedom. It is a nonprofit that tries successfully to promote African American culture and history for the entire community. I'm also Ray Rickman, former state rep, Ray Rickman, former Deputy Secretary of State. I was told this morning by a historian, I knew it, that I'm the highest ranking African American in Rhode Island history. Highest ranking meaning held the highest office, Deputy Secretary of State. No one African American black has been general officer of Rhode Island yet. I am also a child of the 60s. What does that mean? Well, I was born in an apartheid America, a society in which 85% of African Americans, most of whom lived in the South, couldn't vote. People have trouble wrapping their thoughts around that word, apartheid, because we have decided it belongs to South Africa, that we weren't an apartheid society. Well, let me tell you, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, they were. Arkansas, Delaware to some extent. Those are apartheid places. Rhode Island, well, not officially, but unofficially, yes. Now, we had a discussion, they had one in Woonsocket and elsewhere, about what racism is, what white nationalism is, and I thought we'd have a little interesting few minutes together. You ready? So when I was a kid, John Murphy was my best friend in the whole world. My birthday is November 25th. If you want to buy me a little present, ink pen or something, it'd be really cool if you can remember November 25th. And John Murphy, my best friend, his birthday was November 24th. And we were thick as whatever. And we went every place together and we did everything together. And one day, age 10, day before, the 23rd of November, John Murphy and I were leaning on this big metal fence looking at boats on the other side. They were kind of cleaning these boats, and we said, what are they doing this in the middle of the winter for? That's what 10-year-old kids think about. And along comes a Detroit police officer in his car, and he arrests us and takes us downtown. My mother has to come and get us. John Murphy's mother's not around. It's 5 o'clock after school. And this boatyard's 3 blocks from our house in Detroit on the river. And my mother asked the police officer, what were they doing? Now, my mother was the most defensive mother on behalf of her children in the history of the world. So, and she knew that I hadn't done anything wrong. And John Murphy hadn't either. She already knew it. And the police officer said, that we were looking at yachts. That was the reason we were taken downtown. Now, John Murphy was a normal 10-year-old size kid, and I was not very big at 10. And we were arrested for looking at yachts through a metal fence. And my mother said, what does that mean? And he says, well, I thought they were going to do something wrong. And my mother said, tell me where that is in the law, that you can arrest people for looking at something. Were their feet under the fence? Were they on private property? And the officer realized at that point that he was wrong. And my mother said that was quite the accomplishment. You arrest 2 10-year-old kids for nothing, and then because the mother pushes back, you realize you're wrong. Now that's the society in which I grew up. I was with a friend the other day, and he was eating grapes. They had, this is at Whole Foods, and they had 3 different kinds of grapes, and then they had the organic grapes over there, 5 feet apart. And he was sampling 2 of each to decide which one he wanted. And he says, hey, try these. And I said, no, natural reaction. We were brought up never to steal a grape, ever, because a black kid in Detroit could be arrested for sampling eating, stealing a grape. And here I am, 50 plus way years later, and I can't bring myself to steal a grape. I'm sorry, let me use the right word. He called it sample a grape at Whole Foods. Respectable citizen. Did I tell you earlier that I'm Deputy Secretary of State of Rhode Island for a few years, that I'm state rep for College Hill, that I'm a respectable businessman, and I can't sample a grape because my mind won't let me, because I grew up in racist society in which black kids would get taken downtown for taking a grape. Nobody white did. That's what racism is. I'm trying to explain this to folks. Where you get arrested for looking at a boat, where you get arrested for stealing a grape. And I'm not exaggerating. I wish I was. I have arrests, whatever. I got it cleaned up 48 years ago. That's racism. There is not a white Caucasian viewer, listener, friend of, relative of, who can say they got arrested for looking at a boat through a fence. Not in America. That's what racism is. When we were kids, we'd go to the grocery store and we'd take a stapler, a little thing, a little one, and we would ask them, can you staple the bag? And if they said they didn't have a stapler, we'd pull our little stapler out and we'd staple the bag before we left the store, especially if it was a big store, if it was more than one employee. Because in Detroit, of my youth, it was quite common for black children to be accused of stealing when they hadn't. And in my mother's house, she would ask them to staple the receipt to the bag so that nobody would stop you to ask you for your receipt, which is what they did in every other store. May I see your receipt when you're leaving? Never, ever did I see them ask a white person for their receipt. But black people were asked for their receipt. You're a thief because you're black. The potential for you to steal is so high. That's racism. You're supposed to ask a person for a receipt when you saw them do something funny, when you saw them put something in their pocket, when they have some kind of bulge. That's when you ask for a receipt. Nope. You're black, you're leaving the store, you're asked for a receipt. And the white folks don't even know it's racism insulting every other black person they see for no reason. You're supposed to have suspicion. Police are supposed to have suspicion. The shopkeeper is supposed to have suspicion before they insult the person. That's racism. Now, what's going to happen is a whole bunch of people are going to say that I'm exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating. Let me bring this forward to America. To America. This year, I believe. I just asked, when did Nordstrom's close? And the person who was with me couldn't remember. But we believe it was 2019, not 2018. And we went over to Nordstrom's, Ken Reeves and I. Ken Reeves, fabulous human being. One of these people you say, God, I'm so grateful to be on the planet, alive and well at the same time as Ken Reeves. You know, it's like really quite neat. It's the way I feel about Patrick Kennedy. Just thrilled to be here at the same time and to be in contact. So Ken Reeves is the former mayor of Cambridge, Mass. Educated, distinguished, elegant, Harvard man. Ken Reeves was at Nordstrom's shopping up a storm. They had their little going out of business sale. And I went to Nordstrom's where I think I bought 2 things at Nordstrom's the whole 10, 12 years they were here. Because I didn't have any Nordstrom's money. But I ran over to go to the sale and say goodbye to the store. I'd been in 10 times, bought stuff twice. And there I am, and there's Ken Reeves, my friend, my fabulous friend. And, there's nothing better than having the freedom to hang out in the store 20 minutes with someone you really appreciate. We're ex-Detroiters. We've got this love of each other's experience in life thing going on. So Ken and I are walking around. I'm going to buy a present and for my brother, so I'm going to spend, even though at 30% off, it's still a lot of money. So we're walking around, and the security person's following us with his eyes. And this goes on. I see him. And I don't want to say anything because Ken and I are having a good time. And this is quite normal to be profiled in a store. The better the store, the more chance it is you'll be profiled. This is the 30th time in my life I've been profiled. And finally Ken speaks up and says to me, "We're being profiled." And I said, "Yeah, I noticed. What took you so long?" He said, "No, I've been in the store a half hour. I noticed a long time ago." Being profiled is no big thing to the average black person unless they come over and insult you, because it's happened, 6 weeks earlier. So we go up to this store clerk who's been there since day one, who I know from 2 or 3 places, and I say, "The security guard's profiling the mayor and I, and we don't like it." And he says, "He's not profiling you." I said, "Yes, he is." 3 minutes later, he calls the security guard over, tells him that we're respectable human beings and stop following us, and also says to him, "Don't you see there's 60 other people in the store? Maybe you should pay some attention to some of them as well." That's what profiling is. You focus in on the black people who are doing absolutely nothing. Ken Reeves is lugging his big bags, and I'm getting ready to buy one thing. And we've done nothing. We're having more back and forth conversation than we are anything else. We're not going to steal anything. That's racism. Racism and stupidity. I'm sharing this because people like to say there's no racism, it's all over. They don't even remember when there was any, when black folks couldn't live in Mount Pleasant. They can't remember any of this. Do me a favor. Do your children a favor. Start thinking about what racism is and how do we end it, so that no one's standing here 20 years from today talking about this, worrying about this.